Hi everyone, I'm back. I'm Saganyo. It is Global Trends course for New Abyssinian College students. Today we'll start chapter 3. But before we start chapter 3, we'll finish what is left from chapter 2. We'll quickly finish what is left from chapter 2. Last time we saw the foreign policy behaviors of different regions of Ethiopia. We started from Emperor Theodros, then to Johannes, then Menelik, Haile Selassie, and the Derg. We finished by seeing the foreign policy of the Derg region. So what is left is the foreign policy of the post-1991, which is the foreign policy of the present government, the Ethiopian People Democratic Party. And this party started into power in 1991. And in the post-1991 period, Ethiopian foreign policy is driven primarily by the quest to ensure national interest and security. And national interest of the country is understood in the terms of realizing the real interests of the people, mainly democracy and development. So in the times of the Derg, as we said, the main goals of the foreign policy is to keep the territorial integrity of the country and to protect the region. In the post-1991, whereas the foreign policy objective is directed into developing democracy and creating economic development. So in this regard, foreign policy has been considered as an instrument to solve domestic problems of the country. Solving domestic problems of the country, including lack of good governance, instability, and lack of economic development. So in the post-1991, the goal is to create good governance, create stability and economic development by using strong foreign policy. So the domestic problems were identified as the main challenges to ensure survival and national interests of the people. So in those all other regions, the foreign policy, when they developed their foreign policy, they stated that the main problems of the security and the survivors of the country is external forces. But in post-1991, the foreign policy document says the main problem for the survivors of the country is domestic problems. So the foreign policy of Ethiopia has been designed to create favorable external environment to achieve rapid economic development and to build up democratic system. So they used a strategy, and the primary strategy is realizing this goal and to put the focus of domestic issues first. That means solving the economic problems of the country and solving the instability in the different parts of the country. And this strategy is called inside-out approach. That means starting from the insides of the country and continue to solving external problems of the country. If we solve our domestic problem, the document developed after 1991 states that if you solve the domestic problem, the country would not be vulnerable and its peace and survival can be ensured. And outside enemies can be effectively deterred only after the country build up strong economic capability and build up a democratic system, which in turn minimize the risk of disintegration. So they put solving the national problem as the main or the first agenda of the foreign policy. So at the diplomatic level, economic diplomacy is adapted to strengthen the domestic effort in fighting poverty and address the issue of development. So they use economic diplomacy as the main tool for the foreign policy. So what economic diplomacy involves is it is mainly revolves around attracting foreign direct investment, seeking for market for Ethiopian exportable commodities, seeking aid and conventional loans. So this is the areas the economic diplomacy revolves around. The first is getting investment from other countries, getting market for Ethiopian exportable products, getting aid and loan. That was the way the country seeks to solve its internal problems. So the other foreign policy strategy is building up the military capabilities of the country. In addition to the economic diplomacy, the country tried to help its military capability. And the country may not venture to prostrate on the country if the military capacity is scaled up and modernized. So the idea behind developing a military capacity is the belief that the other countries won't pose a threat if the military capacity of the country becomes strong. So through this strategy, different regimes differ, but the primary foreign policy objectives of all regimes remains the maintenance of the territorial integrity and independence of the country. So from the regimes we saw, they are different on the strategy they are using, but their main goal was always the same, which is keeping the territorial integrity and the independences of the country. So in conclusion, diplomacy in the modern era, which shows a very long peace, is because of the countries comes into the diplomatic table. So diplomacy in the modern era, an era which sometimes called long peace, because there was no war after 1945. And diplomacy today is integral to ensuring that our period of long peace gets longer and the world we live in is as conducive as possible to the progress. So as today's world is more linked and interdependent than ever before, effective and skillful diplomacy is vital to ensure the humankind can navigate and ever grow itself list of shared challenges. So that means there is a lot of challenge in the world right now, and to solve those problems, countries should use peaceful diplomatic mechanism. And as a country, we also need to have a strong diplomatic relationship with different actors, and effective diplomacy can help the country to effectively fulfill its needs from the international relation. And this is all about chapter 2. And after this, we will start chapter 3. Chapter 3 is about international political economy. So the last chapter was about foreign policy and diplomacy, and we saw foreign policy, we saw diplomacy too. So this chapter, international political economy, is mainly made up of two issues. There are politics and there are economics. These two issues has their own objectives, and political economy revolves on how the economies of a given country is to be organized and run. International political economy revolves around how the country's economy should be organized and how it should be run. So there are two different ideologies, which is the one is either it should be run by the state or it should be left for different private agents. Should such responsibility should be done by the state or left to make open by the private agents? This is the two issues the political economy is revolved around. So politics is mainly governing the people and fulfilling the interests of the society, whereas economics is around production, but these two things conflict each other when we come to real organizations of the country. So in the international level, international political economics is about answering these questions. The first is, how should international trade be governed? How should international investment should be governed? And how should international finance should be governed? And it mainly answered these three questions. So the first issue in here is meaning and natures of international political economy. That is defining international political economy, IPE, and determining the natures of international political economy. When you define international political economy, it is the study of the tension between the market, where the individual engage in self-interested activities, and the state, where those same individuals undertake collective actions. So individual levels, every people wants to fulfill his own interest. That means as individual, our main focus mainly is to fulfill our own interest. But at a state level or as a government, the main role and the responsibility of the government is to undertake collective action. So they define international political economics as an engagement or a conflicting relationship between the state and the individual. So this definition shows there are two actors in the political economy, which is the state actor and the individual actor. And the relationship between market and the state is based on tension, resulting from forces acting in opposite to each other. That means the state and the market, which is the individual, they act in opposite direction. But the definition misses big non-state actors like big multinational corporations and have equal influence like the state. The definition doesn't include those one. And in addition, the relationship between the state and the market is not always in states of tension. This is the critics on the definitions of international political economics. So they created an alternative definition, which is international political economy is a field of inquiry that studies the ever-changing relationship between government, business, and social forces across history and in different geographic areas. So defining this way, the field thus consists of two central dimensions, namely political and economical dimension. The first definition, it included state actors and individual actors. But in here, they defined defined in the dimensions of the political and the economy. So politics involves making of rule pertaining to how states and societies achieve their goal. So the main goals of the politics of the politician is to making a rule or pertaining how to state and society have achieved their goal. And in the economic dimension, on the other hand, it deals with how scarce resources are distributed among individual group and all other participants in the economy. And the definition, which is a study of ever-changing relationship between government, business, and social affairs, includes these ideas. So this international political economy has its own theoretical perspectives. There are different theories which tries to define or helps us to understand international political economy in different dimensions. And there are three major theories which has different perspective regarding the nature and functions of international political economy. And these theories are, there is liberalism, there is Marxism, and there is nationalism or mercantilism. These three theories define or see international political economy in different perspectives. So let's start from mercantilism because it is the oldest of the three. Mercantilism or nationalism is a theoretical or ideological perspective which defines a strong and pervasive roles of the state in the economy, both in the domestic, international trade, investment, and finance. So when we start, we said political economy is a field which includes the state and the economy, or the political actor and the economy actor. So the main actors of the economy are, it might be the state, it might be the companies, or it might be the individuals. In the sides of the politics, there are government. So this mercantilist theory believes the state should control the politics and the economy. That means the state should have a strong participation on the trade, investment, and finance. So in the arena of international trade, for instance, mercantilists emphasize the importance of balance of payment, surplus in trade with other countries, and to this end is often promote an extreme policy of self-sufficiency. So the mercantilists believe a country can be strong if that country exports more product and imports less product. And they believe this can be reality if the government involves in the economy. For example, by putting tariff and by protecting import to the country. So according to mercantilists, the state should play a disciplinary role in the economy to ensure adequate levels of competition. The state should help discipline the economy by taking different measures. So even if the theory is old, this theory of mercantilism, it is a very old theory. It is from the 18th and 17th century of England, but now it is reviving in South Korea, China, Taiwan in a different name. In its present name, it is called Developmental State Approach, and it mainly promotes the interference of state in the economy. That means the state should have a bank, the state should participate in the manufacturing, the state should prohibit import and other factors. The second theory is liberalism. And liberalism is defined with the idea of free market system, which includes free trade, which is trade liberalization, free flow of finance, and foreign direct investment. When we see mercantilism, we saw the state should protect the economy of the country. The state should export more and import less. But in here, liberalism, they promote free market. That means the government should have a small involvement. And there should be free trade, free flow of finance, and free flow of investment. Free flow of goods and services among countries is the founding value of principles of liberalism. So for liberalism, free flows of goods and services are the main pillar. So the advocates of free trade believes that liberalism, or these free trades of goods and services, can reduce price, raise the standard of living, make a wider variety of products available, and contribute for the improvements of qualities of goods and services. So this is what liberalists believe. They believe there should be free market, and they believe free market enables developments of the whole world. And this becomes possible with competitive or comparative advantage, which means a country will produce what they are best and import what other produces. So it's different from the mercantilists. These liberalists believe in free trade. When trade is free, the country will produce what is best. That means when the country produces the product that they can produce best and import other products which is possible to produce in that country. That is liberalism. And the third is Marxism. Actually, this liberalism, it is the main ideology by this time. The world order or the international system is inclined to liberalism than the other two theoretical perspectives of international political economy. And Marxism, it is an idea of central planning in the political economy of the country. Marxism, this one is extreme. They promote the extreme involvement of the government. And in the times of the socialists, they believe, or their central point was the economy, the rich is manipulating the poor, so they believe the economic ownership should be shared among the whole society, or that means equal distributions of income among different peoples. But by this time, Marxism is no more an ideology by many countries, and its main central role in the world economy is over after the collapse of the Russian Republic. But however, Marxists exists as a critics of capitalism, which resulted a wider gaps of income inequality. Now, Marxists are, the main role is they are a critics of capitalism, which is liberalism, the same as liberalism, and they believe this liberalism results difference of income among countries, and they believe there should be some restriction on the liberalization among countries. So this is the Marxist views of international political economy. They believe the present political economic structure is making some countries rich and some countries poor. So they advocate for restructuring of the present political economic structures of the world. There is also additional theories. The first three are the main pillar theories of international political economy, but there are also other theories, which includes the first one, hegemonic stability theory, which is a hybrid theory containing elements of mercantilism, liberalism, and Marxism. So this theory wants to take what is positive from all the theories and create its own perspective. And the main arguments of hegemonic stability theory is that the root causes of economic trouble by the Great Depressions of the 1920s and 30s was the absence of benevolent hegemony, that is, a dominant state willing and able to take responsibility for the smooth operations of the international system as a whole. And this influenced the establishments of World Bretton Woods institutions like World Bank, IMF, and other institutions with the blueprints of USA. So the main idea of this theory is that there should be a superpower in the world. That means a leading country which can control the world economy. And in addition, they believe there should be existence of big international institutions which manage the world's political economy. And this idea mainly influences establishments of international institutions like World Bank. And there are also structuralisms. And structuralism is the variants of Marxist perspective. And they start with the structural problems of international liberal capitalist system for the global north and the global south, which results unequal exchange of trade and investment. So these structuralists are like they are critics for the liberalism, like Marxists. And they believe the idea of the structuralists is that the present system created a global north which is a very rich region, which includes the Europe, the United States, and other northern countries, and the global south, which included the Africa, South America, and some Asian countries, which they are called global south. They believe the present structure is helping the global north than the global south. And they advocate for a new patterns of development based on industrialization via import substitution based on protective policies. So they are the same in protective policies like the mercantilists. The mercantilists also advocate for protectionist policies. And it was expanded to many developing countries, not developing countries in the 1950s. So this structuralism was the main international political economy idea accepted by many developing countries in the 1950s and 60s. The other was developmental state approach. And this is the neoliberal development paradigm. The results of the neoliberal development paradigm in the 1980s, which failed in solving the economic problems of developing countries. So liberalism and the neoliberalism approach mainly failed to solve the economic developments of many developing countries, and this results the developments of another theory or perspective, which is developmental state approach. So this developmental state approach is an alternative paradigm, and it advocates for the robust roles of the state in the process of structural transformation. Structural transformation means the movements of a country from agricultural-based economy into an industrial-based economy. And they believe in the process there should be a strong participation by the state, and the state can participate in these four ways. The first is by creating strong interventions through ownership of state enterprises. That means the state should own state enterprise. The second one is existence of bureaucratic apparatus to effectively implement the planned process of development. That means the state needs to plan a development agenda, and there should be a bureaucratic apparatus to implement that plan. And the third is existence of active participation and response of the private sector to state interventions. That means we said the state should own state enterprises and participate in the economy. In addition to ownership, the state also should promote private sector, and the private sector should be active in the economy. And the last or the fourth characteristic is regime legitimacy built on development. In here, in the liberalist approach, they promote democracy, but in here, they promote development, and the existence of any region should be legitimized if that region able to create development for the people. So that is the different perspective or theories of political economy. In here, we will see the most influential national political economic systems in the world. So as we see that the political economic systems of the world is a copy from the influential system of specific countries. And there are countries who have different structures of political economy. And some of the influential political economic structures or systems are, the first one is the American systems of market-oriented capitalism. That is what we said, the liberalist approach or the liberalist perspectives of international political economy. So these American systems of market-oriented capitalism is found on the premise that the primary purpose of the economic activities to benefit consumers while maximizing wealth creation. So they believe the primary purpose of the economy is to benefit customers while maximizing wealth creation. That means it should make the owners of the business rich and it should benefit the consumers. That is the goals of the economy. And the approach focuses on competitive market economy, in which individuals assume to maximize their own private interests and business corporations are expected to maximize profit. So in here, it is individual interest which manages or which enables the economy to move, and the corporation, the main goals of the corporation, or they are expected to maximize profit. And competition in this American market-oriented capitalism, competition is the determinant factor, and the economy is open for the outside world. That means any country or any individual can invest, export, or import products from United States of America. They are open for any business, and this is called market-oriented capitalism. And the economy is mainly dominated by big corporations. These big corporations, as a form of share companies, they control most of the economies of the country. The government have the responsibility to regulate business, full employment, and economic inequality. And it is retreating from the responsibility by promoting a regulated market and free market. So that means the roles of the government is to regulate business. And consumers, advocates want a strong, but the government is not participating in any economic activity. All the economic activity is given for the individuals and for the big corporations, and the government roles is only controlling them and promoting competition among them. But consumers want a strong role for the government in the economy to protect their interests, because the economy is controlled by big corporations. They produce only to maximize their profit. And American economists and many others negatively, many economists in the US, they don't want any involvement from the government. Even if the consumer wants, the economists believe that affects the competition. And it is best if the market determines everything. And they believe the government should involve when there is market failure. When if there is a market failure, there should not be any government involvement in the economy. The other system is the Japanese systems of developmental capitalism. In the Japanese schemes of things, the economy is subordinate to social and political objectives of society. So in the US, the economy is the main determinant force. But in the Japanese system, the economy is subordinate to the social and political objectives of society. So opposite to the US, the Japanese state guided the evolutions of functioning of their economy in order to pursue these socio-political objectives. So in Japan, the main goals of the economy is to fulfill the socio-political objectives. In the US, as we say, the main goals of the economy is to maximize profit, but in here, to pursue the socio-economic objective. And these political goals have resulted in national economic policy. And it is more related with mercantilism or neo-mercantilism. It involves state assistance, regulation, and protections of specific industrial sectors in order to increase their international competitiveness and attain the commanding heights of the global economy. In here, in the Japanese system, the government involves in the economy highly, and they support industries selectively to make them competitive in the international economic environment. So many terms have been used to characterize the Japanese system. Many call it developmental state capitalism, the others call it collective capitalism, welfare corporation, competitive communism, and many other names. But it is one of the international international political economic structures in the world. Even if it has many names, the name developmental state capitalism has best captured the essence of the system because it characterizes the idea that the state must play a central role in national economic development and in competition with the West. That means the state helps the economy to create development, and the state helps industries to be competent in their competition with the economies of the Western countries. So the Japanese systems of, and it creates a Japanese systems of lifetime employment, which has also been utilized as a means to promote social peace. This created specific types of Japan firms, unlike the American rivals, that firms are very reluctant to downsize and lay off employees. Japanese companies does not lay off employees in thousands. Even if they are making profit or not, they just keep employees as a lifetime employment. And industrial policies have been most remarkable aspects of Japan's system of political economy, and the state participates actively through subsidy and trade protectionism. The state participates in trade protectionism like the mercantilist, and they give us a lot of subsidy. The society still believes that the state should actively participate in the economy, the Japanese society. As we said, the American consumers also want the government to participate in the economy, but the American economists are against that. In here too, the society still believes the state should continue participating on the economy. The other is the German systems of social market capitalism. This is the third international system of a country or political economic system which became influential in the international system. The German economy has some characteristics similar to the Americans and some to the Japans. Like the Japan, it emphasizes export and national saving and investment more than consumption. They emphasize in promoting export, national saving, and consumption. On the other hand, like the USA, it permits the market to function in considerable freedom. That means there is no control from the government. The German systems of political economy attempts to balance social concerns and market efficiency. They want to create social balance or help the employees or the lower parts of the society, and also they want to create a free market in which the corporations are able to compete freely. And it is a representative of a corporatist or corporalist or welfare state capitalism. So it is the main representatives of welfare state capitalism, in which capital, organized labor, and government cooperate in management of the economy and enables the whole society participate in corporate activity. As we said, the Japanese system, the government is the main actor in managing the economy, whereas in the US system, it is the private sector or the big corporations which is controlling and moving the economy. But in here, the management of the economy is done through the corporations of the government, the labor, and the organizations. So the labor, when we see the participation of the labor, they have significant power in the decision makings of the corporations. They participate in the decision making. At the cost of German systems of political economy is their central bank. Their central bank creates a stable macroeconomic environment and the environments of low interest rates that have provided vital support to the post-war competitive successes of German industry. So the Germany's government controls or manages the economy through its central bank. On the other hand, the roles of German state in the microeconomic aspects of the economy have been modest, rather than government has spent heavily on research and development. So the government supports the economy by investing on research and development. On the whole, the German political economic system is so closer to the American market-oriented systems than the Japanese systems of collective capitalism. So even if it is in the middle between the Japanese and the American system, it is more inclined to the American free market system. Then we will see the difference among national political economic systems. That means the difference between the above three systems: the American market-oriented system, the Japanese developmental approach system, and the German system of welfare capitalism. So political economy differs from one another in many important aspects, but the main difference is one, the primary purpose of the economic activity of the nation. The primary purpose of the economic activities of the nation. So in the US system, we say the primary purpose is to benefit consumers and to maximize wealth and profit. In the US system, the main goal is to fulfill socio-political objectives of the society. So the main difference is what is the purpose of the economy. The second objective is the roles of the state in the economy. We said in the US system, the government have a very small role on the management of the economy, whereas in the Japanese system, the government involves in a lot of aspects of the economy, and the German system is in the middle between that. The other is the structures of the corporate sector and private business practice. So we said the structures of the corporate sector in the US is independent from any participations of the labor or the government. The corporate then do its business by itself. And the private business practice, it is free from a lot of regulation and participation from the government. Whereas when we see the Japanese system, it is most likely of the opposites of the US system. And these three are the main differences of the three national political economic systems. So although the economy must promote the welfare of its citizens, different societies vary in the emphasis, which ranges from promoting consumer welfare to pursuits of national power. So some countries work hard to promote the welfare of their customers, others work to promote the national power, or that means the powers of the government. As of the roles of the state in the economy, market economy includes general laissez-faire or non-intervention stance of the United States, as well as the Japanese state central role in the overall economic management. That means the Japanese government have an overall role in the management of the economy, whereas in the United States system, they had a very small involvement. In terms of corporate management, that means the third characteristics, shareholders have an important role in the governments of American business. That means corporations run their business by own selves, and banks have played more important role in both Japan and Germany. In business practice, the large American firms frequently invent and produce abroad. Japan firms prefer to invent and produce at home. They manage regulatory, industrial, and other policy differentials. So this is all about for today. And in the next episodes of our class, we'll start from core issues, government institutions, and governance of international political economy. Thank you very much.